But I can give some context actually before we kick off how this came about. We did like a small group conversation a few weeks ago, just amongst a bunch of designers, and then the kind of outcome of that conversation was like, we need to get Philip in here because it wasn't necessarily about Subframe, but it was of course around design and AI and all of the things that are happening. And yeah, the end of it was we need Philip to just tell us what's up. So here we are.
Let's kick it off. I go ahead and share my screen. So, like I said, I'm gonna do some things on the fly. I think what's exciting is just everything we're gonna be doing today. It's gonna be live demo. So hopefully the demo gods are with us. But I think that's kind of the point is we're all using these tools every day. It's nice to do these like very like, wow, here's like the amazing happy path of how everything works. Hopefully we get as close to that as possible, but we know in reality that, hey, things break sometimes, or you run into things. It could either be with the tool itself, or it could just be with your workflows. And I think today we're going to see it all in action. So you'll get to see a little bit of uh, just working through, some real world use cases or more some exciting use cases. I think a big feature I want to demo is our prototyping feature. It's in beta right now, and I tried to turn it on to everyone who has signed up already with an account. If you don't see it or if you just signed up today, let me know and I'll turn that on for you as well. But I really want to see, we build subframe and subframe, and I mean this will be the fun part. Like let's just show it, right? So uh you can see that here I'm in our subframe project and I was just working on this today. So it's going to be a little meta, but on the left we have our pages and layers and insert panel. Um, I personally, and you've gotten feedback around how like, hey, it's hard to navigate between pages. We lack the infinite canvas. I don't like clicking in too many different places to get to here. So we're working on splitting that out to basically have pages at the top and layers at the bottom on separate cards. You could see that here in Subframe, I went ahead and I have my own version of Subframe built in Subframe. It's not pixel perfect one-to-one because here I was just going fast. I don't need to recreate this perfect layers panel. Um, but I did iterate on these component cards that we're working on. You could see we're probably going to make them a little smaller so you could fit all that in here. And I really wanted just playing around, whether like, hey, should this be a toggle here between like, layers and that insert? Should insert be its own button? All these kind of decisions. This is exactly how I play around with it. I just try things out. We're probably a lot of things easily go into, wow, do we re-architect the whole information architecture or are we just trying to iterate into things? Um, but in this case, we're probably just going to make some moves to just do one thing a little bit better and work from there. That's a lot about how we work is kind of high conviction, fast, small updates because we know we can always rethink things, but it's hard to rethink things without that data of trying it. And speaking of trying it, this is kind of that point where here I'll hide this. And yeah, we got our like Inception subframe going on. Um, and this is exactly the point where I would usually be like, all right, does this kind of feel right, right? Like, should this be kind of full width? Should it be um, part of the same card? Should it be resizable? Do these tabs, right, kind of feel right that this expands? And I'm designing this in Subframe. Normally I would go straight into code, and that's essentially click on the right code panel, and we build in Cursor. So in this session, I won't be going too deep into code because I think a lot of that requires setup and, getting everyone sort of on the same page and the same project. And the way we build Subframe, there's a lot more in our code base, and it's architected a lot differently to be able to build Subframe and Subframe. But the key pieces are the same, which is I just want to grab this component, or I just want to grab, the style of this card so I can get all the paddings, right? All the stuff, all the positioning that I've figured out here. And my workflow is truly copy and paste. I find that right, you know, component in our code base. I make those tweaks and I get to see it live. So while a lot of that happens for us in code in real time, I'm going to start previewing you with a little bit of our prototyping feature. We're going to do a bunch of examples for this today. It's going to be fun. But I did want to start with the like, hey, get to see really how that sausage is made. So this is our prototyping feature where I'm just going to make this interactive. And the way I do it is I'm just going to leave a couple prompts as comments. Here I say, hey, this is our left panel. Which tab is selected? These are cards. They should fill. We should have some resizing. And then we'll touch on a lot of these bigger sort of like meta level thinking in Subframe right now. Also, apologies to everyone who's like, what's Subframe? I guess probably could have started with that, but we're starting with this. We'll zoom out a little bit and then go back in. So I'll do the kind of quick tour in a minute. But what I did is I have one tab here for the edit state, and then I have the other state side by side, right? And I don't really care about the rest of the UI. I didn't bother to mock it up. And I can actually tell the AI that these are separate tabs and that only one should be visible at the time. And it's going to understand that and it's going to build it. So I'm actually going to do one. I did a few, and I believe one of these was a little bit better than the other. Let's check it out. I think it's this one. Okay. And what's happening here is we've taken these prompts and we're building a little prototype on top of our existing designs of Subframe inside of Subframe. So let's wait for this to load up. Bring window around. There's probably going to be a decent amount of waiting for AI during today's session. So if anyone has any jokes or riddles, drop them in the chat for sure.
So I've got a
Uh,
question. One question on the prototype. If I can't see that option yet, should I just sign out and sign back in, or just force a refresh?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's try refreshing, but if you just kind of signed up, again, it's a feature gate on our back end. So I'm gonna turn that on for you. Okay, great. We loaded this up. I'm gonna hide this. And right, we got our subframe and subframe, and you could see, I'm just playing around like, oh, is that scrolling right? Like, should that search bar be higher? Like this drop down probably should be to the right. That feels good. Same thing with our layers. And then we got our insert tab. And again, I've just made this interactive. And then I believe, let's see, does this work? There we go, right? And I can see what that would look like if I can actually resize it. And, there's a limit here. I set it to max height. Clearly here, it needs to be probably snap to something or have a minimum height as well. But again, these are the types of things that actually playing with once things get into interactions, you find all these edge cases, you try it out, and in Subframe, that's the whole point. We want to get you closer to that so that you could go back to design, make any tweaks you want, or spec out that behavior for your engineers. So hopefully we'll see this feature ship in probably the next week. You're getting an early sneak peek of our updated split pages and layers panel. And yeah, thought it would be cool to show a little bit of how we build Subframe in Subframe. Today, though, let's just start from scratch. I think a lot of people are coming into it new, right? Let's do our design jam, and you're going to be starting from a new project. Okay, I see chat a little bit now. Create a slider that controls the number of items. Yep, great question. Let's do exactly some things like that. Massimo, because again, the prototyping feature, it's really all in beta. To be honest, it's kind of janky right now, right? Like it's in like dev mode, preview state, and exactly people like you are going to be able to give us that great feedback of how to layer in those interactions right inside of Subframe. But for the next few minutes, let's take a moment for the people who are coming in with a little bit of fresh eyes. When you go into Subframe, you get a component library out of the box. All of these are React components that are actually based in code. So this button is just kind of like Storybook, if you've ever used that with your engineers for documenting a design system. We just render this button right in real life right here. You could see all the states. It serves as great documentation. But the magic happens is that everything in Subframe is designable, right? So you go in here and now you're in that kind of component design mode. We got all of our variants with all of our states. And you can go ahead and just start to tweak and say, hey, our buttons, right, should be rounded. Maybe we need a little bit more padding. Maybe our hover state should actually be dark. And while we're doing this, it feels like designing, but you're actually updating the code. So this is really the Lego pieces that make Subframe, the UI tool for building with existing components. That's something that, no one else really offers right now. We give you this pre-built design system out of the box, but you could also create your new components. And then we're starting to roll out for enterprise clients right now, being able to bring in your design components from code. So if you've already have fully built out component library, documentation, we could get all of that into Subframe so that you could start designing and prototyping with it. That's kind of the roadmap for where we're going. Right now, you pretty much can customize it by hand. Everything between components and is tied to the theme, which is kind of on a global setting. You'll probably see this just like quick onboarding when you sign up. But this is really just a starting point. We really want you to take this and make it your own. So there's a lot of good defaults built into Subframe. That's kind of a lot our foundation. We create a palette color system for you, base styles. When you go into some of the things like actually looking at padding, we give you sort of quick defaults as well, that kind of t-shirt sizing. It's kind of a balance of when you approach Subframe, it's that balance between, hey, there's a lot of already solved problems, and that might be your entire component library that you don't have to design from scratch. It might be kind of templates and patterns. You could just click the plus button and, search for stat cards, right? And there's already a bunch in here that are pretty easy to just throw into Subframe, and they're already using your theme and your design system. Now, with that consistency, there does come a constraint, right? Which means it might be sometimes hard to break out of the box. And I think that's something to keep in mind, that a lot of that is by design. But I will say that recently, as designers have been signing up more and more for Subframe and really using it for their entire end-to-end process, we definitely want to make it easier to do more exploratory ideas and try things out. So when you do run into kind of roadblocks, they're often, again, intentionally there to help you with that, process when you're actually you're executing, you're building the tool. But also give us that feedback, because we really want Subframe to feel like that creative partner and something you could really explore.
So can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Because I'm still like I've tried it out and I used it, but what you're showing here is a bit different than how I used it. So how should I think about this as a product overall? Like how do I compare it to say, at least when I've tried Lovable, I was like, oh, that's a prototyping tool. It's very good. Maybe it's
Mm,
not. But here you're showing like kind of components and stuff. So like I guess you maybe do different things, but if I was to say think about introducing this to my team, like I'm very excited about like sort of basically a designer way to edit storybook, for example. Like that's pretty interesting to me, or having a whole
yep.
bunch of components to start with because we don't have that set up very well. We're a startup, so how should I think about the product? Yeah, like and what bit where does it work really well right now?
Yeah, great question. You know, like I showed with how we build Subframe and Subframe, it truly is the end-to-end process for building out the interfaces for your
Okay,
products, right?
so you can do the
We're
components and the individual screens as well.
Yep, screens, components,
Okay.
snippets, and these kind of prototypes. And what you're handing off at the end of the day, um, here, I'll just bring this back, is code that your engineers can actually use. The way to really think about it is that um, we want Subframe to have good inputs, which starts
Mhm.
with your components, which starts with your, and I'll show this all in a minute too, which starts with context about your company, right? It might be
Nice.
documentation. It's kind of this like system prompt that you can
That's very
set.
cool. Yeah.
And the AI also learns on your designs in Subframe as you design.
Mm,
So you're basically personalizing and training your own little AI to help you with that building process where things
mhm,
should be. Like my belief as a designer, I've been designing right with pixels and vectors
mhm,
my entire career. Um, but software is made with code.
mm,
So why can't we just be designing with code in the first place and really make the design part
mm,
feel conducive?
mhm.
Whereas tools like Lovable, Bolt, the AI first code builders, again, they truly unlock just building any piece of software for everyone.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be production code that you could give to your
Mhm.
engineer, right? It's really hard to get your styles in there, and you're
Yeah.
stuck with an only chat interface.
Yeah.
Um, where I'm a designer, I think visually, I want to move this around, right? I want to delete
Mhm.
that, like see what it looks like over here. All of that doesn't use AI. And you know, we really just want to build that design tool for designers while
Mhm.
working with code as the material.
Okay. So it's more like Lovable and Figma like combined or a framer maybe like kind of that kind of way.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And with how
Um,
does the maybe a follow-up question, how does the hand maybe you're going to cover this later, so it's okay. But like how do you actually how does the handoff look like to developers? Is it one way or is it two way or is it somewhere in
Mm.
between? Like how do you like we work on a quite a complex product with a lot of like complex AI backend, so probably this wouldn't be something for that yet at this point, but maybe for like some of the smaller things that we do that are like not so connected. So what I just love to understand how does it fit with the developers basically.
yeah, like I said, everything you see in Subframe was designed and built in Subframe.
Okay.
So everything
That's
is
pretty
kind of
complex.
possible. Um, Components get synced. So
Mhm.
these are sort of your building blocks, and that could be custom components too. But and you know, we could basically show that in a minute, but these get synced. So this is kind of like Subframe is a source of truth, and that gets pushed to code, that your components live in code. Whereas the page level stuff, that's essentially right now like a copy and paste workflow because developers are going to be integrating it with business logic on top of their
Mhm.
code base. And you can really think about it as just like grabbing the elements that they
Mhm.
need of the
Okay.
visual layer
Mhm.
to compose your designs kind of like in a pixel perfect way.
So components
Um,
2 way, pages 1 way. Is that right?
that's right. That's right.
Okay, so pages are a bit like handing over in Figma in a weird way, like in that like it's one way, and then yeah, but the components would be so useful. Like this would be so useful. Like just tweak it, the border radius, and just press publish. Like yeah, wow, that would be a dream.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And
Thanks very much.
yeah, so I wanted to kind of do a little bit more of this meta stuff where I could have just like I should have just asked Subframe about what it knows about Subframe. Um, and maybe kick off some of these FAQ questions by itself. So I think that part's kind of fun. But yeah, it's really up to you as well how scrappy you are with Subframe. We have people who truly build out and componentize everything, including like layout components and sections, and that does mean that you basically can sync a lot of this stuff more directly and is more one-to-one with what lives in code. Other times, you just want a little toolbar of badges, and you're like, I don't remember, is it flex wrap or is it flex align center? I just want to quickly design it and then just grab the tailwind CSS and put it wherever you need to, and kind of let Subframe just be this like kind of one-off little piece. So that's kind of how we think about it. We let you sort of choose your own adventure there, depending also on your engineers. All right. So what we're
This is
doing
a bit,
now, right?
this is a bit like modules, right? This modules tried to do this a few years ago, but they didn't pull it off. But
Oh
this is
yeah,
much more different. Yeah.
we know Steve and the
Yeah.
modules people.
Uh,
Yep, we've been obsessed with these tools for a while and
mm,
felt like no one had cracked it, so we
mm,
were ready to crack it.
yeah.
All right, let's see. What do we got here, right? One of the things when we get into AI, which we're doing now, is you have SKI on the right, and this is kind of really your chat and page generator on a high level. It always has context about the current page on the left, which right now is blank, and it will generate multiple variations of pages for you. So we got a few different ones here. I can actually go in and apply that design. Or if you like things from here, where maybe you're like, oh, this header is better because it's got this search and stuff, you could just drag that over. So that's kind of the magic moment is that, AI, like you're training it, you're giving it all those inputs we talked about, but you're the designer. Like it's up to you to truly figure out and remix what, how things should work and live in Subframe to kind of create that final design. So that's kind of a lot of how I use it is that initial generation, remixing ideas, and also whoop, sorry, I'm just moving zoom around and getting to just a better starting point. Because once you're ready to design things, maybe we could hide that. I might say, all right, let's like make these, a card, and I could just go back to manual mode. Um, so I'm gonna put these in card, and then we're gonna do something cool. Let's see. Well, first we could also just ask, like, are these even good answers, right? Like we got we got Figma to React code, built-in component library, components, connect your Figma design. We don't do that out of the box. We let you upload screenshots and they will try to rebuild it with your component design, with your components inside of Subframe. And yeah, there's limitations around anything of that backend nature and advanced interactions. That's kind of where you might go into code. But while you're here, you might ask like, hey, create a cool retro style theme with soft shadows and let's see, warm grays and soft gradients and subtle shadows. And then you could say update this page with the new theme as well. So we're starting a new chat here, but like I said, it has context about the current page. it's actually going to go in here. And this is a new feature we've added, which is the AI can also help you generate themes. So like I mentioned, it starts at the theme level. If you ask it to create a purple button and your theme is not purple, it's going to say, you should probably update your theme, or you should go to your component and add that purple color and make that update. So that's a lot of just like the thinking behind Subframe is knowing its constraint, but also knowing its possibilities and sort of like how things cascade from the theme level to the components, to your page. Right now, our AI doesn't go in and actually update your components themselves. That's something on the roadmap that'll let you also create really cool interactive components. But I'll say that's coming in a few weeks. Today, if you want to change this button or make a new button, you basically want to go in and edit that from that component editor, like I showed before. But let's take a look at this. We got cool little retro theme. I can just apply that. I could have like previewed it here first. This has actually updated that theme. And now it's like I asked it, it's actually gonna update the page as well, probably with some of this styling. So we'll actually see if it changes it drastically. But you can kind of see that difference of what's happening here is that the theme already changed a lot of the look and feel, but you can also continue, right, to make changes to it on the page level as well. And maybe we'll get some things like gradients on this page background, kind of like I asked after this is done. Let me try to catch up with the chat so I can find it.
Yeah, you have a few questions there.
Okay. How do you turn on light mode? Okay, right now it's a little funny, but light or dark mode of the Subframe UI is tied to your theme, which today is either light or dark mode. So that's why you'll see it in one way or the other. We are working on both supporting light and dark natively for your theme so that you can create basically both modes side by side. And then we'll probably also detach the actual UI switch as well so that you could toggle it. Ooh, slots. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's try to componentize something and make that. Yeah, Bernard, around the Figma, like I said, we don't have an import from Figma feature. We're probably we do it from code. We're probably getting to a point where you can at least bring your styles in. And once AI can also update components, there's probably a way for that to get close of recreating your Figma components. But the reason we don't do that is the same reason that Figma doesn't do proper code export is it's hard. It's not a solved problem, and Figma files can be very messy. All right, Mendagas, you're throwing out bets. Nice 4-up. Ooh, things are it may. Are subframe designs responsive? The AI tries to be. We're responsive in that everything's on an auto layout canvas, and a responsive design can be hard. And basically, and the AI can help with this. So here, that actually did a pretty good job, right? Like we got on the page level some nice, I think a pretty good hierarchy. We got that subtle gradient, and you can see that mobile view by default, everything collapsed nicely. When I'm in here in this mobile view, I can make updates. So I can go in and drop this text down to be smaller as well as this one. It looks like I'm updating the font here, but this is basically creating an override for the mobile view so that things still stay on the desktop breakpoint and then back on there's a change on the mobile one. So from here, right, you could preview things and that's why it's nice to see those breakpoints in real life. You can always ask AI for harder things to try to make things more responsive. But in general, I think responsive is hard, whether it's overflow, whether it's wrapping, whether it's actually a breakpoint change. I think the best tool right now is we want to just give you that ability to preview this one-to-one exactly as it is in code, so that you could stress test those things before waiting for an engineer to implement it. All right, so we got let's see, we've covered subframe and subframe. We got our nice, again, another meta FAQ design. Let's go back into prototyping a little bit, and then in the last maybe 10 minutes or so, we can really just open it up for some questions. I'll try to also, this is actually a good example for who asked the component question. A good way to think about components is, yeah, especially because they're manual right now, it's hard to build a really good component from scratch, which is why I usually like to, and our AI right now, again, doesn't create those components for you. So in this case, right, it actually used the accordion component to create this card with a bunch of content. One thing you could do if we were actually kind of like working on this and is you could now wrap this, and we might run into an interesting thing. Make this a custom, FAQ accordion. We're going to suggest some props for you by auto-detecting some basic stuff, right? Like text. It's up to you to basically toggle them, because remember, when you're working in a component, you are creating the code component version as well, which is why things like props and stuff do get a little bit more, it is a little bit more important to get right. And what you see here is now we have these props, right? And we could preview kind of our component in real time. And this is probably right, like our title and our content. But what about these badges, right? I don't want to have to make a prop for every single one of these text items. I want to control how many there are. This is where slots come in, and slots are really part of how React code works as well. So it's something that we actually brought in from front-end methodology. And by default, it's called children. That's a React thing, which lets you just put anything. But here, I'm just going to name it badges. And what that did is this stack right here that has these is now something that you could put anything in when you're using it in the instance. So if we go back here and we have our FAQ accordion, I can pop this out, right? And now I can actually modify them for each badge. I can also put, really anything I want in here. And this helps really from the flexibility of design. You could have multiple slots, but it also helps with code, because engineers will often ask to pass through props and, on click actions if there's like buttons in here, and slots allow you to essentially put those components, wrap those components just like you see here as a slot, and add the on-click handlers, etc., that are necessary.
Thanks, Philip. That was my question. That was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's see. One thing I've been trying to do some interesting examples, like especially ones that get kind of thinking on a meta level, especially with prototyping. So let's try to make maybe a little mobile chat interface. I'm sure a lot of us are working on chat, and it's something that's obviously dynamic, and you want a prototype. So let's go ahead and just create a page. I'm going to go back and just help set this context as a, is a chat app for design feedback. And now it's going to have a little bit more context. I've seen people push the limits of that little text area. We're probably going to need to make it bigger, because you can really, the future will really be ingesting really anything to do with your product, whether it's those design documentation, whether it's PRDs, right? Whether it's brand style guidelines, it's really this kind of like brain or the equivalent of like Chat GPT's memory for Subframe. So let's just do a simple chat interface that supports images and buttons for giving feedback on the uploaded image, right? To help facilitate this, I guess, design feedback app that we're working on. While this is happening, you'll see this nav bar pop up here. Navigation, this is something a lot of people run into. It's another layer between components and pages. What it really is doing is basically just creating you a default layout that's the same on any page that has that. To edit it, you go in here and you can see the one layer of indirection is that this is actually also a component. So if I truly want to edit what these nav items look like, it kind of drills me down all the way to this like subcomponent level. But at the end of the day, I can really make those changes here. It's going to show up the same way on every page. So, you know, if I go ahead, we have a bunch of preset options here. And it's gonna make those updates, but right now we don't support things natively. Like for example, selecting which selected is in your design. Because again, this is like a page level template that applies to every page. What we're going to be working on is either adding the ability to have your own additional custom layouts where you could customize that, or you can always have the escape hatch of taking this sidebar rail out of this page layout and just pasting it here, right? And adjusting kind of like your padding. And now you could do anything you want on the page level here. So that's just one thing that's a little bit nuanced around page layouts themselves. Hopefully you can try that out. All right, let's see. These guys are rolling in. And of course, it's going to pick some default stock images that are not going to be too exciting. But something that I want to show is not only how to make something like this chat interactive, but this sort of meta thinking that you can do once we really open up prototyping with your designs, that enables you to stress test those things that I think some people kind of mentioned. So let's go ahead. All right, this one's very simple. Sorry, Zoom is in the way. Looks like I probably want this chat bar here. So I'm gonna drag this down here and start getting rid of some of these, as well as this border. So another quick trick is that what you could do, oops, and I think I put that in the wrong place. There we go. Is RAI, we've been working with this one on the side here, right? To kind of generate ideas, but you could also right click on anything to not only get every prop that actually exists on this element. So if you search padding, you could just add padding. If you want a different background color, you know, let's do like neutral 200. You could just do that. That doesn't use AI. It's a nice way to not deal with the properties panel. I often like to kind of, you know, vibe design by just like having this here and not really having to deal with the usual interfaces of a design tool. But if you do find something that doesn't exist, maybe here we got to say, hey, add icon buttons for feedback and commenting below. You could also ask AI in line, with kind of anything you want, and it will just make that update right then and there. So those are really the few ways you can use AI. And let's see. It's also helpful for, oh whoops, that was Arc. For doing just like tedious things, whether it's updating content, whether it's like make all these icon buttons small, right? You could just use it for that kind of like quick, can you just do this for me? And it works pretty well for that. Whereas the Ask AI tab is better for actually exploring ideas. All right, so we have a basic chat here, and let's actually prototype some interactions. Maybe I'll add a little bit more padding, just by maybe 32, just so that lines up nicely. And let's go ahead and actually make this real. So the way to do that, we're going to do a couple of things. Let's first also add, let's see how we're doing on time. I'm going to do also a page that's create the home view of all the recent stats. A new page that's the home view of all the recent chats displayed in a row of cards. So again, I can use this current page as just some additional context for the AI to actually create new pages for me. So it's really up to you to say, I could have just gone to a new page and that would have probably been fine. There's not too much context here. But just starting from a page, anytime here, you can sort of select what you want the AI to know about as it's generating from your previous designs. It's a really good way to sometimes steer it in the right direction, especially if you want to make things consistent or copy, basically bring in a bunch of maybe content or data that you already have on a different page. Right. I'm gonna peek at chat. Inline commands, yes. Thanks, Michelle. Okay, great to know, Janelle. Yeah, we try to make it hopefully on the surface to feel easy, but you can really go deep, right? And I'm definitely showing some of that here. Okay, I said row of cards. I think I actually meant cards on rows, so prompting error, but we'll fix that. And I'm just gonna pick one of these. And I'm just going to save it as a new page. And actually, just for the sake of this demo, I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of brown button. So I'm just going to quickly change that just enough here. All right, great. So let's try to basically what we want now. And, maybe I could say make these vertical and then fill, but let's just keep it simple right now. We want to connect these pages together. And that's something that's really hard to do in tools like Figma, right? We're obviously starting with a very opinionated design here, so it's really hard to do with AI code tools. But all we want to do is be able to click on any one of these, see the chat, interact with the chat, and go back, right? So that's what the prototyping feature really, really starts to do well. You could see, sorry, that was kind of fast. When I clicked that prototyping tab, it actually created a new flow for me. These are the same flows that you see here. And so basically, once you have a new flow, and let's call this our, design jam prototype, you could drag the pages that you want in here, or you could add them from here as well. And any page that you have will be in your prototype. So I need to quickly, as you start doing this, you will realize that prompting often makes you change your design. For example, here, I'm going to want a back button so that we could go back to our home. And maybe we could do that with the nav, but I'm just going to do this kind of here right now. And this part is going to be super simple, right? We want to add functionality here. So just comment on your design of the functionality you want to add. So I'm going to give it some context, like these, each card is chat. When I click on it, open the corresponding detail chat view. I'm going to also say animate the cards in smoothly when the page loads, right? You could also say, hey, allow me to search chats. You could say, when I click new chat, create a blank chat and make sure it shows up here as the most recent one. And then we're going to go back to this page. We're going to say, allow me to send a message into the chat. I'm going to click this little button and say, when I click this, open the file picker and let me select an image to add to the chat. And then, let's see, it's basically a back button to go back to chats, and we're going to have to simulate some data. So after I send a chat, go at typing animation and respond with a sample with a response to my design. And maybe we can actually go back and say, hey, this is our like AI designer or something in this case. So you could see it's really up to me whether I start really high level or whether I go in super granular. We're learning as well how far you need to steer the AI, but we're going to go ahead, connect these pieces from our designs, and we're going to hope for the best right now because it's out of our hands. And what we're doing here is taking all that designs that already exist as code, taking those comments and in a smart way, injecting them inline contextually as prompts for the AI to actually go build an interactive web app for these designs. And so this is something that's kind of like a fork, right? It's its own standalone web app. You're able to share it. You're able to continue iterating on it. But at any point, you can go back to design mode. That's your root design, make changes. And then when you go back here, press update, it's going to try to fast apply those changes so that you can basically keep all that functionality while updating those designs. Wow, time flies. Isn't it fun waiting for these designs to load? I think I'm gonna need to ask Subframe to design some better loading states. That's for sure. And Massimo, specific set of icons. Yeah, right now we just allow uploading custom like SVG libraries, but that is on our like enterprise plan. We're mostly doing that to support the same people who are bringing in their own design systems. I will say all of that in the future, we're hoping to open up to everyone. And yeah, Bernard, good question. I'm gonna throw it back at you. Is that something that curious, like, yeah, why you'd want to just publish directly? Sorry to put you on the spot.
It was a question to me. Sorry. Yeah. I followed all the the webs that actually Mindaugas was publishing with Lovable. I started to think about certain kind of small websites. And I just like the idea going from defining a problem, creating a mini ERP, creating a prototype, and just push it out into the wild to get some feedback. I like it. I like this kind of straightforward way. I have no kind of developer background whatsoever, so I don't know how good the code is and how it actually works. I just saw what August did, and I was quite impressed, to be honest. But maybe maybe you want to add something to this.
Yeah, it's a great point. Basically, the way we think about it is we expect you to be working on like real products in Subframe that are on a team with engineers that have an existing code base that are really more tailored to that product design workflow that's usually collaborative. Um, we want to just be really good at that part first because I think a lot of product designers are being underserved in this area. Um, I think websites are something that, you know, uh, sorry, let's try to fix this bug. Yeah, live demos. So you're seeing it in action, you're seeing it before it's released. But yeah, I think that's kind of the point is like we expect that code to be worked on with engineers after. And we just really want to be good at the design process. I think other tools, including some of these AI tools, I will say what we're doing here as well, you could be doing in Bolt, and we have a good integration with Bolt or Replit, where you could take your designs and code and basically import them into those tools and keep jamming there. But yeah, build connecting to Supabase, all that stuff. We want to be maybe in the future, but we want to be the tool for this moment. Yeah.
I have one more
And
question. Sorry. For me, it's also really important because I'm usually working on more complicated data-heavy web application. I'm a product designer in a bank. And we really try to differentiate between product discovery and product delivery. So what you did today for me kind of sounds like this might be a good match for if you're able to kind of use a fully fledged design system for delivery. But what we are doing currently now that we are already switching in the discovery phase, Lovable, because you can just create super quickly a bunch of ideas and run these experiments with users and share it with stakeholders. And it's honestly, it's good enough to share the idea because I like what you have shown a lot, but I like the simplicity of just creating ideas very quickly because as soon as Lovable gets the context and it's really good at for example, reading screenshots, I can even provide something that looks like our design system is kind of integrated and the stakeholders kind of immediately can start a conversation about this, So how would you position your product in regards to product discovery actually? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we saw already generated a few pages. We give you actually more design variations than those tools, where to me, product discovery is, yes, you want to validate a specific product, whatever a concept, but how that concept appears, that's our job as a designer. And, I think in terms of quantity of design variations, that's where we excel. You can just keep asking it to say, hey, design a new version of this page for me, design a new version of this page for me, and you have all of them side by side to choose from. Whereas the other tools like that are so focused on building the whole app one by one piece by one piece. So yeah, I would say if you're actually not building a full stack app, I hope that we become that tool that's a lot faster at just creating lots of different ideas very quickly, prototyping them out, and then being able to take exactly the ones that work and actually just keep working on them, right? Instead of having to sort of rebuild them from scratch. So yeah, I know we're at time. Man, if this one, I did a rebuild, I'm gonna be disappointed if this one doesn't work. Oh, there we go. Just in time for kind of whoever's left. Let's see our chat. I'm able to click in here. I'm going to upload an image, right? Let's go ahead and send a message. boom, we got that. We got our AI designer responding. I can go back here. Let's see if it remembered. Yep, it remembered the state. And this one's empty, right? And you can also create a new chat. So yeah, pretty happy we got it to work. You can keep iterating, updating your designs. We got our new design chat here. But hey, it came through at the last minute. So yeah, thank you for everyone tuning in. Try it out. Hit me if you don't have the prototyping beta yet. It's pretty exciting. And it's still early. So all of this feedback, we take it to heart. We ship really fast. Like you saw our pages and layers split just earlier today. We're building the tool for designers to actually work with code and AI there to help you out. But yeah, with you guys still being there in control to tweak all those buttons and border radiuses that we love to do as well. So thanks a lot, everyone.